Hi, my name is Megan and welcome to the kitchen. Today we are going to make a super simple shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie is something in my head that sounds super complex and delicious and something that I would never take the time to make. Doing it this way feels like I'm cheating because it is so simple and so delicious, and there are a lot of things you can do to this basic recipe to level it up and make it even better. My goal today was to only use ingredients that are included in our long-term food supply. If you haven't checked that out, you definitely should. So I'm using ingredients from that, and then I'm also using our Country Life seasonings just to show you that you don't need a whole lot of extra stuff to make a really fabulous meal. So for today, the ingredients we're going to use, it's a really long list. Are you ready? We have 3/4 cups of French lentils. I'm using French lentils for this because they hold their shape a lot better than a red lentil or a green lentil. You could probably get away with using green lentils for this. Red lentils are going to fall apart and turn into mush. Would not recommend, but hey, your prerogative. I'm also going to use 3/4 cups of dried dehydrated vegetables. We have these veggies in the store that are so super convenient for a long-term storage type thing, or to just have in your pantry for if you're like me when you haven't gone to the grocery store in an embarrassingly long amount of time and you're just craving some vegetables. This is a really easy way to do it. Not long-term sustainable, but great in a pinch. I am going to use our Stand up, please. Thank you. I'm going to use our barbecue seasoning and our not chicken seasoning in the lentils. I made it once with just the not chicken seasoning and it was really good, but adding the barbecue really helped round out the flavor a little bit. I'm going to be using some potato flakes. You could totally make your own mashed potatoes and that would definitely level this up. But these potato flakes, again, are just so stinking convenient. And to flavor those, I'm going to use our ranch seasoning. Other than that, the only thing I'm going to be using is some water and some coconut oil, and that's it. So let's dive in. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is boil some water. I have my handy dandy stove set up here. I am using 3 cups of water. A good general rule of thumb when you're cooking small legumes is to use a 2-to-1 ratio. So like lentils or split peas. It also works well for grains like rice or quinoa. It's a really good starting point. So that's what I went with here. So I have 3/4 cups of French lentils. I have 3/4 cups of dehydrated vegetables. 3/4 plus 3/4 is 1.5. 1.5 doubled is 3. You get the drift. I'm mostly explaining this so that you can very easily double your recipe at home if you have a larger family. I'm just me. I don't want to make a whole lot. This recipe is going to make 4 little pot pies of this size, but you can also very easily do this in a casserole dish. My stove is on high. I'm going to bring this to a boil, and while that is boiling, I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of our delicious barbecue seasoning. Now, I have broken a few rules with our barbecue seasoning and all of my seasonings in general, and I store them in a humid place, and so they are a little bit cakey. We don't put any anti-caking agents in our seasonings. So when you see that this is a little bit hard, that's entirely user error. Take notes and put them in a drier spot. Because of that, I'm just going to kind of use my hands to break it up so that it incorporates well. So I'm about a tablespoon of that. And then I'm also going to add a tablespoon of our not chicken seasoning. Both of these seasonings have salt in them. You could definitely add more salt if you wanted to. You could add more herbs if you wanted to. I'm using dehydrated vegetables in this just because, as I mentioned before, they are just so super easy. You could very easily use fresh, frozen, or canned vegetables for this. You would just need to adjust the water a little bit. So if I was using fresh vegetables, I'd chop them up to whatever size I wanted. And I would probably, depending on what the vegetable is, adjust where in the cooking process I put them in. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, the reason I'm using French lentils is because they hold their shape really well. So it gives your shepherd's pie a little bit more of a bite, whereas a red lentil is going to kind of turn into a pool of not distinctness. It's going to kind of turn into a little bit of a mush, which is not what we want here. You could probably get away with a green lentil. I prefer French lentils for this. It's my go-to. If you haven't tried French lentils, you totally should. They can be a little bit hard to find out and about in the wild, but luckily you're watching this video, which means you've heard of this really cool place called Country Life Natural Foods, and we happen to sell them. They're delicious, so come get them from us if you can't find them anywhere else. You should get them from us anyway, just, you know. Okay, so this is on the stove. I've talked enough about a very simple thing. We're going to bring it to a boil, reduce it down to a simmer for about 30 minutes, and then I'll be back. We'll see you then. Okay, so I am here just checking in on my lentils. You can see that before what looked like just a lot of water now just has a little bit of moisture on top. I'm gonna wait for a little bit more of this moisture to evaporate before we put it in our dishes, just so it doesn't have to bake off. Your lentils don't need to be completely cooked at this point because when it goes in the oven, they'll finish cooking. So you just want to get them most of the way there. When I put my lentils and my dehydrated vegetables in my pot, I put in 3/4 of a cup of each. Both of those are going to about double in size. So if you wanted to use fresh, canned, or frozen vegetables, in my opinion, I like to have about a 50-50 split of vegetables to lentils. So if I'm using 3/4 cups of lentils, I know that's going to about double in size to about 1.5 cups. So I would want to add about 1.5 cups of vegetables. Peas, carrots, onions are all excellent choices. I would say potatoes are really good, but we're also going to be adding potatoes on top. So if you think it's redundant, it's redundant. I don't think you can ever have too many potatoes. So if I had some little cute ones, I could throw that in. But pretty much anything you have on hand. So this dehydrated vegetable blend also has corn in it. It looks like it has some bell pepper. So this would be a great way if you have some veggies that are just kind of on the edge of, can I use this or not? This would be a really great recipe to use them in. So I'm going to just give this a couple more minutes to keep evaporating off. It is smelling absolutely delicious, and we'll be back momentarily. All right, my lentils are very, very boiling because I turned the temperature up a little bit so that I could evaporate some water off a little bit more quickly. You definitely don't want your lentils to be like dry because they are going to lose some moisture in the oven, but you also don't want them to be, well, maybe you want them to be super soupy. I don't like them to be super soupy. I kind of want them to be in a happy Goldilocks zone because, I don't know, I do. So this is maybe a little bit on the more soupy side of things. I'm pushing it a little bit here, but I definitely wouldn't go any soupier than this. You could go a little bit drier than this, but be careful not to go too dry. So now that the lentils are boiled, we are going to put them in our dishes. You could very easily put these in a big casserole dish and you would be absolutely good to go. I really like putting them in these Pyrex dishes because then I don't have a casserole dish and the bowls I'm serving them in. I just have my little bowls that are very easy to warm up, and it is fun and cute, and I prefer it that way. So that's how we're doing it today, but you could definitely do it in a regular casserole dish. For this amount, I would probably use a 9x9 pan, maybe an 8x8. Again, it depends on how thick or thin you want your lentils to be, but we're gonna use Pyrex for today. So I'm going to make 4 little Pyrex dishes with this amount of lentils. I'm gonna take this out. Stir it up. Move my ranch out of the way. We're gonna use that momentarily. One of the reasons I really like this recipe is because it's another fun way to eat my veggies and lentils. Lentils are packed with protein and folate, which I believe is a B vitamin, which everybody needs. And vegetables, obviously, depending on what vegetables you include, are going to have different nutritional benefits, which is kind of, I don't know, it's another fun dish. I like it. I'm going to smooth these out slightly and make sure they're mostly even. Last night when I made this, I definitely ate 2 that are this size, but I tend to eat a little bit more at supper than I do at lunch. So, or, I mean, if you want to add an apple or anything, you've got a great meal here. So there's my lentils ready to go. I'm going to wash my pot and then bring more water to a boil so we can make our mashed potatoes, and I will be right back. All right. I am back with my very same pot. Honestly, the only reason I wash it is so that I don't have lentils in my potatoes. It's purely an aesthetic thing. If you're okay with lentils in your potatoes, then just throw in some more water. I'm using 2 cups of water. We're gonna bring that to a boil. You could 100% make mashed potatoes to put on top of your shepherd's pie, and honestly, it would taste better than doing it this way. Again, we're going super simple, super convenience-based here. These potato flakes are wonderfully marvelous. I bought a 4-pound bag of it a couple months ago. It's my favorite go-to lunch on a busy day is I have like this little baby pot and I'll boil water and throw in some frozen veggies and bring it to a boil and then add in some potato flakes, and I've got a really easy, simple like now meal. Bought a 4-pound bag a couple months ago. I eat that at least once a week, sometimes more, and I'm still working on the same bag. So these will last you a good while, and it's a great lazy way to have potatoes. So yeah, there's potatoes. 2 cups of water. I am going to add 2 tablespoons of ranch to this because it tastes really good. And it's super simple. The ranch has oat milk in it. It has dill and parsley and some lemon juice powder. So it's a really simple way to add some good flavor. The other thing with these potato flakes is that the texture is significantly improved by the addition of some fat. So I have some coconut oil in this. I'm going to try not to drop the container. You can tell it's warm in here because of how soupy the coconut oil is. Anyway, so I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of coconut oil to that just because, like I said, it helps the texture of the potatoes end up better. Give that a good stir. Let that come to a boil. I don't usually measure the potato flakes when I'm adding them in. I just kind of add them until the potatoes are the texture I want them to be. The other day I measured it so I could try to give you guys a good measurement. And the closest I could come up with is it takes slightly more potato flakes than water. So I'm using 2 cups of water here. I would start with 2 cups of potato flakes. For me, that was a little bit softer than I wanted them to be. So I just kept adding a little bit. I think I ended up adding it was less than another half cup. But again, choose your own adventures. Maybe you like your potatoes a little bit drier. Maybe you like your potatoes a little bit looser. That's up to you. So we're gonna bring this to a boil. I'm gonna add my potato flakes. And again, we'll be back. At this point, if you wanted to preheat your oven, now would be a really good time. I'm using a toaster oven, so I'm not gonna preheat my oven because it doesn't need preheating. But if you're using a for real oven, preheat to 350 degrees. See you in a minute. All right, my water has officially come to a boil, so I am going to start adding in my potato flakes. I love jars that do that. They make me happy. Okay, I have a 1/3 cup measure here because that's what fits in the top of my jar here. So we're going to start with our 2 cups and mix it up and then see how it works. So there's 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. And I didn't actually turn this off. So we're gonna turn that off and start mixing them in. So you can tell right now there's a lot of run to them. Like I said, I like my potatoes have slightly more substance than that. So I'm going to add another 1/3 of a cup here. This is still hot. Megan, remember why you're doing things. That's hot too. There we go. And just like that, you have delicious mashed potatoes. Could it be any simpler? I don't think I could. I don't think I could. I don't think it could. I could be simpler. I don't know if you've noticed how much I over-explain things, but I could deal with some simplification. Okay, we're gonna take this and we're going to spoon it on top of our little starts of pies here. You can tell that there's kind of been a little bit of a crust formed on top, which means that I really stopped them. It wasn't too soupy when I stopped them, which is a good thing. I start with just a dollop on top. When I put this in a casserole dish, I do the same thing where I kind of spoon on individual globs, it's such an appetizing word, of potatoes across the casserole. And then I kind of spread those out rather than putting it all in one place and trying to spread it out, because I just never have good luck with that. So distribute, then spread tends to be a pretty good general rule of thumb. And then when you're making cookies or something, the best part is looking out the bowl. I get to look out the potato bowl. You just have to be kind of careful because it's a little hot. Not as good as mashed potatoes. If I were to boil my potatoes and mash them, it's not as good as that. But for the amount of time it took, that's amazing. Okay, I just ate off that spoon, so I'm not gonna use that spoon to smooth these out. My other spoon. I saw something recently where somebody baked their potatoes and then they like pushed them through a cooling sheet, and that was how they got their mashed potatoes. And I've not tried it yet, but that just sounded so genius for making potatoes for a big group, because I feel like the hardest part of making mashed potatoes is peeling them. But if you can bake them and then push them through the thingy and they're mashed and peeled at the same time, and theoretically you'd have more potato flavor because you're not draining off. I mean, anytime you boil water and then drain it off, you're losing flavor and nutrients. If you bake it and then push it through, you're not losing the nutrients and you have all of the potato flavor. Genius. I need to try it. Okay, I could make these smoother. I like leaving them with a few little peaks because then you get the lovely browning that we have on this one. So I'm going to leave them there. So now we're going to put these in the oven at 350 for about another 30 to 45 minutes. Love potatoes. Over to the oven we go. I'm going to try not to trip over my dog here, who's being so sweet, saying hi. Everyone say hi to Quinn. Hi, girlie. Okay, we're going to put them in at 350. We're going to press start. It's going to say it's preheating. And then after it's done preheating, I change the timer. Looking for the word timer. So we're going to put it in there for about 30 minutes, and then they'll be done. We got our delicious shepherd's pies out of the oven, and they smell so good. I want to specifically point out this one right here. I said that I don't like completely smoothing them out because I get the little crispy bits, and you can see the nice little points here that have gotten a little bit of browning on them. They would definitely get more if you left them in the oven slightly longer. So you can choose whether you want a nice, smooth, clean surface, or if you want those nice little crusties, which are absolutely delicious. I have some chives here and some dill that I'm just gonna sprinkle on because it's always fun to have a little bit of a garnish. Kind of adds to the, you can see how the ranch has added some nice green flecks into the potatoes as is. I'm going to take a bite here. It's going to be very hot because we just got it out of the oven, but it's still going to be so good. Give you a nice little cross section here. Oh, look at that. We've got the potatoes. Hot. I got the potatoes and the lentils. It didn't dry out too much. It smells so good. I really don't want to burn my mouth right now, so I'm not actually going to eat it, but I want to so badly. There you have it, your super simple shepherd's pie with some easy ways to upgrade real potatoes, real vegetables. If you wanted to add some seasonings, this would be so good with some mushrooms in it. I would love this with some mushrooms in it. It's delicious. I hope that you try out this recipe. Let me know if you do. Let me know what your favorite vegetables in shepherd's pie are. Remember to check out our long-term bundle because it has good stuff in it. If you haven't tried our Country Life seasonings. You have to try them because it makes stuff like this so incredibly simple. And let me know what you want to see me try to make next. Thank you so much for spending time with me here today. I hope you've had fun. I've had a ton of fun. I will see you next time. Bye. That's really good stuff.